Jennifer Byrne and welcome to the club. Tonight we're starting with a debut novel just released but already causing a publishing stir. Its arresting premise: imagine waking up to discover that the Earth's rotation is slowing down. That is The Age of Miracles, followed by Marique's pick about a celebrated theatre director who retreats to a far-flung shore in Iris Murdoch's The Sea, the Sea. Let's meet our guests, starting with my friends Marique Hardy, for now, my friends Marique Hardy and Jason Steger. Our first guest joined us last year for our summer special and we had so much fun, we've asked him back. Author of 12 books, 250,000 blog entries, a shoo-in for this year's Queensland Premier's Book Award. Please welcome the hardest working man of Australian letters, John Birmingham. Our second guest is an award-winning playwright, star of screen and stage, most recently a very sexy Lady Macbeth. Won't you please give a hearty book club welcome to Kate Mulvaney. But to the books. And the first is a global disaster story, as seen through the eyes of an 11-year-old girl. Karen Thompson-Walker's The Age of Miracles.
The experts went public on the 6th of October. There'd been a change, they said. A slowing, and that's what they called it from then on. The slowing. Our days had grown by 56 minutes in the night.
Catastrophe of major proportions.
At the beginning, people stood on street corners and shouted about the end of the world. The grocery stores were soon empty, the shelves sucked clean. People heard the news and scurried in every direction, like small animals caught suddenly under a light. But of course, there was nowhere on earth to go.
Nowhere to go, because the days were getting longer and longer.
And longer.
And longer. What did you think?
Iris Murdoch book.
Oh, don't start. We're starting on the Iris Murdoch shaking already.
It's a great idea. It's a really, really good idea, this. And but it's a curious book, though, because it's both partly a speculative fiction novel, what if this were to happen. It's also a sort of young adult book. It's told through the eyes of 11-year-old Julia, narrated by her, but it's actually narrated from 10 or 12 years in the future. And sometimes I think that it doesn't quite meld together. There are bits, particularly the speculative stuff. I wanted more of that. I wanted more about what was going on with the world, what was going wrong, and how it was impacting. You read it and it's quite convincing.
I thought it was quite compelling, actually. I just couldn't.
Oh yeah, you
stop.
don't. There isn't a dull bit in it.
Oh my goodness, I felt exactly the opposite. I thought.
How unusual in this club.
I thought it was for a book that was about the end of the world and all the cataclysmic things that could happen, and she kept hinting at that speculative stuff. It was so dull.
Oh,
it
really?
was so. She kept using the phrases, if only we knew, and now, of course, we do know, but we never got there. I never felt like I got to the point where there was a point of realisation or there was a point of this is why we stuffed up, this is why the slowing happened. I loved the term, the slowing, but I felt like she'd taken it on board as a writer, and that there were a few too many inconsistencies in it for me that I couldn't quite follow.
Okay, we'll come back for detail because, I mean, it's also the two stories, you're right, you're saying you wanted more of the speculative fiction. Well, some of the people have said they wanted more of the coming of age. What do you reckon?
You people wanted a Michael Crichton novel. I loved it. I loved it desperately. I wish we could swear on the show because I love this book so expleting much. When I'm, out of here, I'm going to go blog about it like a maniac and tell everybody to read it. It was fantastic, and all that stuff you were talking about, I can understand you know, I too would like to read a book about the world slowing down where suddenly you see the military implications of it and governments falling and so on, but that's not what this is about. It's about a girl.
No, I didn't want that.
I didn't
not at
mean
all.
that.
It's actually about being a girl in the suburbs at the end of the world. And so, you know, the stuff that's important to her is not the stuff that's important to us. The stuff that's important to her is, the bitch queen who makes fun of her at the back of the bus, and the boy that she desperately, desperately loves who just ignores her and then goes out with her and then ignores her again. And those are actually the most powerful parts of the book, is where she has those completely mundane 12-year-old girl experiences that just rip your heart out and throw it against the wall. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. I'm so glad. But impartially, what did you think, Marie?
Well, I've got an expletive in my mind too, but I'm using it in a different way. I'm Team Mulvaney, I've got to say, in this one. I found it a real plod, and I don't think that what was of interest to a 12-year-old girl has to be uninteresting to an adult audience. Teenagers Catcher in the Rye, what's interesting to a teenager can be very interesting to an adult, but I didn't think the melding of the end of the world and the coming-of-age story worked at all. So something cataclysmic would be happening, and then she'd say, but forget about that, just kissed a boy for the first time, lol. And I thought, what? Hang on, it was completely
how it works, like,
adolescence.
But it did.
That's Shaun of the Dead for 12-year-old girls.
The two things I thought worked against each other rather than with each other.
I didn't feel like she was a 12-year-old girl.
She's narrating it.
She's narrating when she's
as a
grown
bit
woman.
older. She's narrating from a time
that's
many
not
years.
a 12-year-old's voice.
No.
It's,
And I
She's
think I got
23 or
caught. I got
something.
stuck in the which voice am I supposed to be listening to, and she seemed to be such a deep thinker that when she did start talking about kissing boys, I was going, oh, you're not the character that I thought you were.
Yeah, I didn't think.
And I got lost in that.
Yeah.
I found it utterly convincing. I thought this is exactly how it might be. That, as she says, we were waiting for all the big things: the melting of the ice caps, the loss of the polar bears, the greenhouse. We thought we knew the catastrophe coming. Worse, we thought we could do something about it. But when the real catastrophe comes, it comes out of nowhere. And so there are those who say, rather than being, in fact, two stories, it is, in fact, also the story of adolescence, and that they are actually the same story, the uncontrolled, unstoppable catastrophe bearing down on you.
Exactly. The age of miracles that she refers to is not the slowing of the earth. It's her going into adolescence.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting at the start of the book when they first announce it on the television. She says, all of a sudden everybody was on the road, they were driving off, but there was nowhere to go. What do you do when the world slows down? You can't go anywhere. You just have to carry on until
the stakes didn't really get high in that sense. I liked that there were a lot of people trying to go about their life as normal. So it really split the neighbourhood into people saying, well, we're going to live our life the way that the days normally are, and people who sort of acquiesce to the way it went.
The real timers and the
that sort of happened either a third or half of the way through. Up till then, it just felt like daylight savings. It was like, so it's 9 o'clock, sun's still out. I thought, wow, not dramatic.
I've got to say, I thought one of the things that was so great, because I'm with you, I thought it was actually fantastic. I really loved it. Was this lack of explanation. There was no villain.
No.
There was no solution, and there was no explanation.
Exactly right.
It was a classic show, not tell. It showed you the birds falling out of the sky and the whales beaching, and it didn't tell you why it was happening. It didn't tell you what this did to people. It just... You went through this experience, and gradually, when you threw a ball, the gravity had reversed, so everything... You couldn't go so far, and then the solar storm starts.
You're giving it a lot. To me, you're giving it a lot more energy than there is on the page. I think the way that you describe the birds dropping from the sky and the whales again, I don't get any of that. I thought it was a real plod in that regard. I thought all the energy, like the gravity, was sucked from the page.
I highlighted passages.
And
give us a passage.
So I have
Passage off.
No, on the topic of liveliness, I found it funny that the type, that they put the thing about the type at the end. This book, this face has something, quote, something of that simple, hard-working, feet-on-the-ground quality, as well as a liveliness of action. And I actually put exclamation marks there because I didn't feel any liveliness in this book. I felt dead while I was reading it.
I'm sorry, I was with you. One of the reasons I don't read a lot of literature is because nothing ever happens. It's all about the sort of, the interiority of these terribly dull people, and you know, not 1,000 miles removed from a book we'll soon be discussing, actually. And he was a book. He was a story, a beautiful literate story where stuff was happening, and you know, she's not a ninja. She's not, the Vice President of the United States with ninja skills. She's just a kid in school in California. There are a lot of people who will read this and who will enjoy it because stuff happens in this book in a way that it often doesn't in literature.
For me also there is the immense poignancy that she is growing up suffering all the kind of normal anxieties and fears of adolescence. She's growing up into a world that is dying. And to me that gives, beyond the story, that gives it's a gravitational, huge pull, and I think that's what kind of broke my heart at the end. I won't say the end, but I think the ending is stunning.
Yeah,
and
that's where we disagree. Like because in the end, it is literature, which means it's just wretched and miserable. If we'd gone down the path you wanted to go down, and I totally agree with this, like she'd have got every aircraft carrier in the world and stuff.
I never mentioned anything about aircraft.
Got the planet spinning again.
If it was a Birmingham book, that's what would have happened, isn't it?
It is, with ninjas.
That's the age of miracles. Now it's time to have a look at what else we've been reading this month, starting with you, Jace.
I've been reading Martin Amis's new book, Lionel Asbo. And Marique is about to read this,
I don't want you to say too much, though.
Oh, put your fingers in your ear. Okay. Which is about a villain in the East End of London who wins £140 million on the lottery. And sort of
goes on the back flap. It's okay.
Oh, no, I don't read the back flap.
Goes ballistic anyway, and it's about his nephew who's living with him, who is having an affair with his grandmother, an incestuous affair. It's a bit like, in that case, it's like the nephew has been adopted by Bill Sykes in Oliver Twist. It's a lot of fun. It's Martin Amis. It's not his best, but it's a lot of fun.
I thought it was one of his best for ages, actually.
I preferred The Pregnant Widow.
I can come out now.
Can come out now.
All I heard was grandma, and it's a bit like. Yeah. So I think I'm okay.
I haven't finished yet.
Oh, God, really?
Yes, you are.
My literary crack dealer, Lorelei, gave me Careful He Might Hear You by Sumner Elliott, which is part of the new Text Classics series. Gee, it's so good. It's such a good read. I think the film of this came out when I was very young, and I don't think I ever saw it. So the story was quite new to me, but it's a cracking read. I mean, it's got your goodies and your baddies. And a child trapped in the middle. I thought it was just exciting.
John, what have you been reading?
I could show you my phone because I have been listening to the Clive James memoirs. I had always meant to read his memoirs. And then I thought, I got this stack of books and then I'd get to it. But I do a lot of driving because I take the kids around us. And I could listen to it, so I checked. He narrates his own memoirs. And that was it, I was sold. I don't know about you guys, but I have a very strong oral memory from childhood of that voice. And it's just that cheeky, laconic drawl. And you're allowed to listen to like a minute and a half before you buy the book. And it just all came flooding back. I was walking around the streets of the city early this morning like a crazy man, just laughing because it's beautiful. It's really, really good.
Kate.
I'm reading a book that I've been reading since I was about 3, but it is a children's book, or it's for 9 to 90-year-olds. It's called Masquerade by Kit Williams. I'm adapting it for stage at the moment, but the story behind the book is that Kit, who is actually an artist, made that jewel. Made it himself. He's an inventor as well, and he buried it somewhere in the world, and he put the answers to where it was buried inside the book. And so it set off this sort of Willy Wonka-style golden ticket hunt in the 1970s and 1980s, and they eventually found it. Kit became a bit of a recluse because it was scary, the way that this book took off. So I tracked him down a couple of years ago, and I literally turned up on his doorstep and knocked on the door and said, "I'm from Australia, I'd like to adapt your book." But I'm actually going to see the jewel in a couple of weeks. They've found it. It's owned by the Dubai royal family or something, and they've brought it back for the Olympics.
So but it's fundamentally a treasure hunt.
It's a treasure hunt.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And this is what I've been reading. Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. Rough story, marriage been going for 5 years. It's their anniversary. He goes to work and he comes home and his wife has disappeared, presumed kidnapped. I would have loved to have done this for book club. We can't because, like a great thriller, it has such a huge twist in it. We couldn't do justice because it would give it away, but I think it's a fantastically enjoyable read. Gone Girl. Now, next up, we are looking at the work of the late, great Iris Murdoch, her 19th novel, with which in the late 70s she finally won the Booker Prize. And clearly, your heart too, Marique. It's about a flawed hero, Charles Araby, and a pack of London lovies who just won't leave him alone when he moves to a broken-down cottage beside the sea.
It is strange to think that when I went to the sea, I imagined that I was giving up the world. But one surrenders power in one form and perhaps grasps it in another. We are all such shocking posers, so good at inflating the importance of what we think we value. Then I felt too that I might take this opportunity to tie up a few loose ends. Only, of course, loose ends can never be properly tied. One is always producing new ones. Time, like the sea, unties all knots.
Marique.
Yes.
Speak to
My
your
time
choice.
is now. This is another one from Lorelei. So she passed this on to me. I read it. It's my first Iris Murdoch, and I read it for the first time in April while I was overseas and couldn't put it down. I enjoyed it in a story sense. I do love that our protagonist is a cad, a bounder, a rogue, a cur, and I love a good cad and bounder. He's hideous.
He also
He's
drinks like a fish, which
he
you
does,
like
which
too.
I also like. And he also describes his meals in detail, which I like. I love reading about
And
food.
they're very odd meals.
I don't think they're on this.
What about
very
the Korean
simple.
clams?
Maybe not the clams. Anyway,
the potted
Oh, let's
everything?
not pick at the meals. Just give me time. So I enjoyed it on a level. He rediscovers his first love. I liked what it said about who we are when we first love, what we chase when we go back to find that first love, and I enjoyed it on that level. So, and then I just suggested that we do it here, and I thought, well, I'd better read it again. And on the second reading, it's been like a kaleidoscope that every time I turn it, I see new colours, and I think it is a book about death. It's a book about death and dying. I don't take the story on a surface level anymore. I think he could be dead from very early on in the book, and he's in bardo, he's in limbo throughout the book, and a succession of characters from his life, and it's the life, the vivid, messy lives that we lead, what destruction we place behind us, and what happens when we're faced with it. And in a philosophical sense, it's really it's blown me away that on the second reading. I mean, I enjoyed it on a very basic level on the first, and I don't think that's for everyone. I think it's an exhausting book. But at the same time, for me, it's exhilarating, so bring it on, bitches. John Birmingham.
Okay. I hadn't thought about the whole death thing. Actually, that's true. I thought a lot about dying while reading this book. But it would make a lot of sense because he doesn't rediscover his lost love. She just blunders into the plot like some completely inexplicable and just completely unbelievable
And
plot
that's what
development.
I think. I've read some reviews since then who were saying, gosh, all these clunky coincidences because her son turns up and then ding dong, here's someone else at the door. And I agree, and I didn't mind that the first time around because I wanted to see what happened. But giving it, and I mean, I'm not saying that you need to have that deeper level or that view to read it, but to me, it changes the book completely. I read it in two different ways.
Yeah, but you're always going to win any argument that involves reading twice a book that's
Not
550
necessarily.
pages
Not
long.
necessarily.
I thought he was dead from the start, and
you
I've only
did?
read it once. I got it about a quarter of the way through, and I went, oh, he must be dead.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was dead at all.
Was he in purgatory? I thought he might be in purgatory.
He was in purgatory, but it was a sort of purgatory. No, I didn't think he was either dead, permanently dead, or in purgatory. I thought
was just
that
boring.
it was just. Well.
This is like
Oh, come
Freaky
on,
Friday,
he's
isn't it? That we've just
excruciatingly
switched roles.
I mean, the book is like the sea. It just seems to go on and on and on.
God.
But no.
The cruel sea.
The cruel sea. It's an odd book because I sort of admired it in a way. You sort of see what she's trying to do, how to be good, and this stuff about the Tibetan Buddhism, and she brings in the character of his cousin who is a Buddhist, who just to sort of reinforce that you get her message and her philosophical interests. But at the same time, it is unbelievably dull as well at times, I think.
I agree that there are some long passages, particularly...
in a way, when we were talking about speculative fiction before, what if? This book is a sort of speculative fiction. What if it had happened? So then he's trying to go back to see if he could actually get his first love again, and what would happen if he had been with her.
I thought it was a great act of bravery, actually, by Murdoch, that she chose to make bravery or complete contempt for the reader, that she chose a character so dislikable, so thoroughly egocentric, completely self-absorbed, misogynistic, really bad tasting food.
I disagree.
Sorry, there's a pot of
the food is amazing.
Yeah. But I thought that was really brave. And I mean, of course I respect Iris Murdoch. She was a great writer. I just thought...
Well, stop stomping on her grave, Jennifer Byrne, honestly.
Because it was awful.
Yeah.
It was awful.
It
didn't...
Come on, Team Mulvaney, come on.
And not only was it awful, it was an awful experience to read it. It was so out of date. I mean,
it's a 70s book.
It reminded me of a farce, actually, because, it was like a sort of some vague metaphysical farce, and all these strange characters came in, and, you didn't quite have the vicar dropping his trousers, but almost, there are all these Gilbert, these strange sort of theatre people turn up. Gilbert and Peregrine and Lizzie and Rosina and Rosina. Somebody's trying to kill so-and-so and somebody's being jilted.
They exist. That's why I loved it.
No, they're real. They're fantastic. Oh, you mean they're
in real life?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So have you met a Charles Araby?
I know about fucking list 5, and you probably all know who I'm talking about. But
Wish you would.
He exists, and I kept. It was funny when I was reading. I was flashing between actors that I know, and that as a stage actor, I'd worked with these guys, and I found him hysterical. I thought he was full of humour. His food, the food stuff cracked me up because it was always in brackets. It was always like, only a fool doesn't like tomato ketchup. Yeah. And banana should always be cut, not mashed. And these little... I'm very famous in Japan. Only me and the Japanese know why. And things like that I found really, really lovely and humorous and dry. I think he was aware of his own...
I think the humour as well, not just in Charles, but in Iris's writing. There's scenes to me that are really blackly comedic, just as set pieces, that when he's found his lost love, this first love, who was this leggy, lithesome teenager, and he finds her and she's sort of got a moustache and she's sort of shuffling around with her shopping bags. And there are these great scenes between them where he's sort of, my darling, you mustn't speak. But she's like, oh, I need to go down the shops and, my husband's disabled. And he's like, oh, my God, you're so gorgeous. It's just it's so ridiculous. It's absurd.
That's the funny bit.
Coming round.
Which is where it fits in.
Hey, all right, let me just give you a sample.
Yeah.
This is Charles Araby's voice. And just to give you a sense of what kind of character he is, I may add here that one of the secrets of my happy life is that I have never made the mistake of learning to drive a car. I have never lacked people, usually women, longing to drive me whithersoever I wanted. Why keep bitches and bark yourself?
My God, it's Bob Ellis.
I said at the first, he's a hideous character. I think he's a colourful rogue. He's a horrible rogue, but I love it, and I just love watching him. He will never learn.
But there are pricks of conscience in there, which I just ate up like breadcrumbs on the way to the gingerbread house. It's those moments that I go, oh, there you are. There's the heart.
There's the good conscience.
Okay, so let me just ask really simply, and maybe start with you. What is it, as far as you're concerned, about? Because, I get all the Tibetan references and, I can see, I just find that trite, try-hard and out of date. But that's a method. It's not actually what it's about. So what is this book about?
You sweep away the macrame and the Hessian pants and the fondue.
There it is.
It's about a yearning for innocence. That's what it's about.
I'd agree with that. And like I said, the first time I read it, that's what I saw it as. And I enjoyed it on that level. I enjoyed it on a theatre people level. It's the characters are very vivacious and grotesque, I think, that the theatre folk who come to see him. I loved that on a surface level. And then to get something deeper and richer out of it a second read, I felt really honoured.
It'd be just as bad the second time around.
I don't know. Actually, I have to say, when I started reading it, I really thought, oh, this is, it was like sort of rowing through a terribly rough sea. And I really thought this was going to be a trial to read. And it was a trial to read until about halfway through, and then, I felt much more eagerness to read it. And when I got to the end, I thought, well, I can see that she is writing a very serious book here about one's life and death and spiritual well-being. And it does demand, I suspect, a second reading. And it suddenly struck me that it could be, it's not going to be, but it could be one of those books that you read every year or two and get more and more out of.
Yeah, no, but to me it was like Masquerade. It was like the book that Kate, reading it that second time, all I saw was clues. All I saw was clues about who was James, who were these people, at which point does he...
But can I say that just the fact of just seeing the clues, I mean... I could see the clues. I got the messages. I mean, I could see the levels.
You just
in which
didn't understand them, and that's fine.
I just thought it was a novel. I thought it was a genuine novel of ideas. I just thought the ideas were dumb. That's the difference.
I
thought the ideas were...
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, what was that?
That's how we felt about the first book.
Yeah.
I didn't think the ideas were dumb, but
How wrong you are about the second book.
Emotionally, it didn't really engage me at all. It was a sort of clear-headed read. The sea. It wasn't. I didn't care particularly about any of the characters.
It's not the sea. It's the sea. The sea.
Yeah.
We have two seas.
This is true. This is true. The sea. I didn't care about any of the about any of the characters.
You have done a valiant and excellent job prosecuting the case.
Yeah, it's much more fun when you sit here and make fun of someone else's books, I've got to say. It's not going to change next time, though.
Thank you very much for joining us for another month, and a big thank you to tonight's book clubbers. Thank you so much, John Birmingham, Marique Hardy, Jason Steger and Kate Mulvaney.
And Jennifer Byrne.
And Jennifer Byrne. Yes. Next month, we're coming to you from the Melbourne Writers' Festival, joined by novelist David Vann and scientist and author Margaret Wertheim. And we'll be looking at the celebrated HHHH, which is about the assassination attempt on the Blonde Beast, the fifth-ranking Nazi, Reinhard Heydrich. Our classic is George Eliot's epic Middlemarch. It's a big book, so get cracking on that if you hope to read it by then, and no complaints from you, Missy, about length.
There'll be plenty.
Until then, very happy reading and good night to you.